Here we go.
All right, all right. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, Facebook and Instagram. This is Jackie Oceguera and Brian Cardenas with You Mortgage. Welcome back to our Real Talk Tuesday, where we answer all of your real estate related questions. Oh, my screen is going green and yellow again. Let me get closer. So
Now
again,
we just need to go green and red for Chris time, get us in the mood.
this is where I change colors, guys. So this is where I go green and yellow. And I answer your real estate questions, real estate related questions, financing questions, anything you have for us. So please feel free to type in the comments what you want to know about, and we're more than happy to answer that for you. Um, Brian, our other host here, has some great topics that he wants to talk about. But before we get into that, I want to talk about a family that we recently helped out. Um, we were actually just able to close them a few days ago. Um, Very special family for me because I've known them since they were teenagers. Especially the one of the buyers. I've known her, I want to say, since she was 13 or 14, and I was so honored to be able to help them out. They got into an amazing program and they were able to buy with very little money out of pocket. So, Brian, are you able to tell us a little bit of how we were able to make that happen for them?
Of course, I'd be happy to. Yeah, so theirs is a story that is, similar to a lot of people in the market these days that, maybe they've thought about buying a house in the past, but if anybody was trying to buy a house, within the last few years, it's been difficult. Coming up with the amount of money that you need to buy a house, interest rates, all those fun things have been really a challenge. But fortunately, what we were able to find is a down payment assistance program that was able to cover all of their down payment and a little bit extra to go toward closing costs. And that's one thing that, a lot of people don't really understand when it comes to down payment assistance or really purchasing a home is, when you hear about down payments, you think that, okay, well, somebody tells you there's 3% down or 3.5% down or whatever, that's what it's going to take to get into a house. And there's actually a whole other set of money that's needed, which is for closing costs. So when we have a down payment assistance program that covers the down payment, we got to figure out the closing cost part, because most of the down payment assistance programs really don't have very much to go toward closing costs. So that's where we have to have a really good real estate agent, like somebody that I know, and negotiating for the sellers to give enough money to cover all their closing costs. And literally, that's what you were able to do on this one, right?
I was able to negotiate all of the closing costs. So they really just came out with their inspection money because they were reimbursed the full earnest money deposit. Again, just a little refresher: the earnest money deposit is something that's given to a title company once your offer is accepted and you officially go under contract. And they were able to get that full earnest money deposit back and also get a refund for their appraisal. So in all reality, they really just paid for their inspection. The inspections normally range from $400 to $600, just to give you an idea of how much money they spent getting into this home. And that actually brings me back to another point that I want to make during this live call. Um, the market had a lot to play with it. Got a Well, you know what I mean, right?
I know
uh,
it's
I, yeah, Brian translates for me when I can't speak English, which is 80% of the time. Um, but there's a lot. What I want to say about the market is that there's a ton of opportunity, and this is a very special time for buyers to be able to get great deals. And that's because right now, we have more buyers than sellers. So I'm sorry, we have more sellers than buyers, actually. which means that there's a lot of inventory, there's a lot of homes available, there's a lot to choose from, and also there's a lot of flexibility in what we as real estate agents can do. Obviously, the deal that you're going to get, it does actually depend a lot, and it does matter who you work with. So you definitely want to work with the team that's going to make sure to get that deal for you. And that's what we do. And that's what Brian does for you as well. He's super knowledgeable and he will go over all of your options with you. Um, this is not intended for a commercial, so I'm starting to sound like a commercial talking about me and Brian. But honestly, if you work with us, you definitely have all the great things going for you. Again, it's not a commercial, so please feel free to type in questions that you have, type in anything that you may think of. I did put in the other screen just to make sure that I'm on live. I don't know if Brian can verify if I'm on live as well on both platforms. I just want to make sure that I'm able to see any questions that come in.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. I think we're having some trouble on Instagram still on both of ours. I think we're good on Facebook. I'm gonna go double check and see. Yeah, it looks like I see you on your Facebook, so good there. My Facebook, who knows? Yep, we're on my Facebook.
Okay, even on Facebook, I know that I have a lot of my Spanish speaking audience there. So remember, keep in mind that we are able to answer all of your questions in Spanish. Tengan en mente que podemos contestar cualquier pregunta en español. También podemos ayudarles en español. Brian is actually a little bit bilingual because he has been doing Duolingo for a little while now. So he might be good help. But I am fully bilingual, so I can definitely take care of any questions that you have in Spanish. Again, cualquier pregunta que tengan en español, aquí estamos para servirles. Lo pueden poner en los comentarios para que sepamos de qué tienen dudas. See how that sounds way better than me speaking English. So anyways, now that we're able to see any questions come in, Brian, are you seeing any questions? Are you anything come in on your end?
So one question that I had somebody message me yesterday on it that they weren't going to be able to be on here, and we're asking just kind of like what the market is like right now as far as home prices, because they've been kind of hearing that home prices are coming down. So the natural question is, is it better to sit tight and wait? And so maybe if you could talk a little bit about what the market, at least locally here, has been doing, that would be helpful.
Yeah, of course. So again, this is a market where there's a great opportunity for buyers. I want to say it's officially a buyer's market, which means that you're able to negotiate great deals. There is a ton of options, a ton of inventory for you to choose from. And ultimately, what that means for you is that there's more listings, more sellers than there is buyers. So that means you have more options. That means that you have leverage and you're able to leverage that into your favor to be able to negotiate great deals. And again, that's where I come in as your real estate agent to be able to secure and negotiate the best deal possible so you too can go into a home just like that family that we just helped with, basically under $500 down. Again, they just put in their inspection money. Everything else is taken care of, and that doesn't just happen. That happens because we're right there negotiating for you and making sure you're getting the best deal possible.
So with the idea that, people have is, should I be waiting? Like, what do you think about the concept of waiting for home prices to come down?
Well, keep waiting. Not going to happen. Well, I think people have an expectation of home prices dramatically going down. We're talking about a crash or, home prices being at 100,000 for the house. I obviously don't have a crystal ball, but I don't see that happening. There's still buyers. there's still deals happening, and we're not still right now at the point where we do have more inventory, but it's not at the point where we have an excess of inventory for prices to dramatically come down. I do see some price reductions and price corrections. I would definitely believe the market right now is going through a correction, but I don't see home prices coming down dramatically like people are expecting to. As a matter of fact, right now it's forecasted for rates to come down in the next year and a half or so. There's a lot of talk about 2026 and how rates may be in the fives range. And what that does is changes the market. You know, people that are on the sidelines, people that are waiting for the perfect time, they're coming in to the market when interest rates are lower, and so is everybody else. So that means more competition, and just the you're probably not going to be able to have the ability to negotiate a great deal like now. So actually, since we're going into market and interest rates, what is the forecast on that?
Yeah, I mean, for home prices, sort of the consensus estimate is like 3.4 nationally percent increase, not a decrease. I think what people miss in all of this is they see price reductions, and right now I believe it's like 45% of listings are having price reductions. And so when people hear that, they instinctively think, oh, prices are coming down. And the truth is that doesn't necessarily mean prices are coming down. It means sellers' expectations are out of whack with what the market is saying. So if sellers are still trying to get a price from a year ago or 6 months ago, that may not be very realistic, and they may have to come down on that list price. But I think, and I don't have access to these numbers, but you guys have it as realtors, you guys can see what that list to sell percentages. And I think it normally hovers in like the 98% range, meaning that the sale price averages 98% of list price. So that may be a little bit of a deviation there, but I think the biggest reason that people miss on home prices and what's going to happen in the market is they don't really get the supply and demand part of it. Like they understand sort of in a big picture that if there's more houses, then home prices are going to come down. And what they don't realize is that we have more houses today than we had like 2 years ago, 4 years ago, for sure. But we don't have as many houses on the market as what we should have to have a really balanced market. And the combination of a little more inventory right now and the higher interest rates is what's got stuff kind of sitting a little bit longer. And, you know, when people ask me, like, do you think there's going to be home prices are going to go down or home prices are going to crash? I really kind of refer them back to thinking about, okay, well, when we actually saw home prices crash, one of the few times in history was back in 2008. And I, explained to people, well, what happened back then was a couple of different things. Leading up to that, there was a lot of mortgage products that were created by people on Wall Street that made it really, really, really easy for people to get loans. Like we joke around saying if you could fog a mirror, you could get a mortgage. And it was almost that easy. Like people that, you might have worked at McDonald's or something like that and said you could state that you made $100,000 a year and they didn't have to check it. And you could have had like credit scores in the 500s and bought an investment property with no money down. Like it was crazy easy. Well, what that did is it just created a whole bunch more demand for mortgages and for homes. And so builders started ramping up production to keep up with the demand, because the more houses they could build, the more money that they could make. And so what was happening is people were getting put into these loans that probably shouldn't have had loans. And then most cases, they didn't actually understand what the loan programs terms had in them. And what they actually had is a lot of times they have a fixed interest rate for 2 years. And then they might even have a prepayment penalty that lasted for 3 years. And then at 2 years into it, interest rates adjust. And all of a sudden payments go up and people can't refinance out of it because now there's a big penalty if they try to refinance out of it early. So now they got to stick with the payments that probably went up because some people were put into loans that had artificially low payments called negative amortization, basically less than the interest that was due. So all these different features that people didn't understand. And so when all this, the house of cards came tumbling down, people couldn't afford their payments. Now we start having short sales and foreclosures, and builders had already started the process to build homes to try to keep up with all that demand. Well, that's like a 2 to 3 year ramp up period from land acquisition to permitting and all of that stuff that's required. So they actually kept building longer than they should have. So now we have all these extra homes market from builders building all these homes. We have all these extra homes on the market because now people can't afford the payments, foreclosure, short sales. Now there's a flood of inventory, and now there's not enough buyers to take that up. So there's a home price drop, like a crash, a real legitimate crash, because now people started losing their jobs as a result of it. It was just a really bad situation. So I always tell people, like, think about where we're at today compared to where we were back then. We're nothing like that. Like, the loan programs are pretty safe and secure. They're stable. There's no weird features to them. There's not all of a sudden interest rates going to jack up on you or balloon payments due. Prepayment penalties aren't allowed anymore on primary residences. Like, we have to document people's ability to repay the loans. There's so much different about the loan industry that the people that are getting loans can actually afford to pay them back. And so there's not this excess demand created by too easy of loan guidelines. And so now the people that can buy are the ones that can afford it. Well, what happened though in 2020 and 2021 is we had another surge of demand because with COVID, the government stepped in and basically said, hey, mortgage industry, whatever loans you can write, we're going to buy. So we had all this demand for the loans from the, which pushed interest rates down. So now all of a sudden we got all these people who want to go buy houses because now they can afford to upgrade or buy their first home because interest rates are so low. So all that artificial demand was too much for the supply of homes because builders were gun shy. They weren't building as many homes as they used to or that they needed to. So now we came out of that 2021 into 2022 after home prices went up 15, 20% a year. And all of a sudden, now people are thinking, oh, interest rates are going up. We're going to have a market crash. And I just say, look at, like, interest rates got to 8%. Market didn't crash. Like, there was about a 10% correction at the top. But now I think we're over what the top of the market was back in 2022. So there's really very little chance that we're going to see a housing market crash. So I just tell people, like, you're not probably serving yourself by waiting for that to happen, because every 6 months or a year you wait, you lose out on the potential of equity growth that you could have had if you just got in early. So I think that's the biggest thing for people to understand, is where the market is at is not really a time to sit around and wait. The natural instinct is want to wait for interest rates to come down. But we always tell them, if you got the house and interest rates come down, you just refinance. It makes it so much easier. If rates go down, then you're going to have a whole bunch more back in the market, and you're going to make competition more difficult. All these seller concessions that you can negotiate for them, that's probably not going to be there if there's 3 or 4 or 5 people trying to get the same house. So if your timing's right, it's a good time to jump into the market.
So what are some of the things that you are offering as far as just alternative ways to make your payment more affordable?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we look at with everybody is we look at interest rate buy downs. So when you money from sellers to give you extra money to cover your closing costs, some can even get enough to buy the interest rate down as well. And so you can do the interest rate buy downs either permanently or temporarily. And what we usually do is we can show people the difference. Okay, if you got X amount of dollars from the seller to go towards a buy down, how much is that going to reduce your rate forever? So if you think rates aren't going to go down, maybe you want to go ahead and buy that rate down for the long haul. It's not going to go that much lower because the permanent interest rate buy down is going to cost a little bit more. But the other one that's more popular is a temporary buy down. That can further, you can buy the interest rate down. Basically, the way that they work is the seller pays for the buy down of the interest rate. The most common one is a 2-1 buy down. So that makes your payment calculated at 2% lower interest rate for the first year. And then the second year, it's 1% lower than the note rate. And then it goes to the note rate for the rest of the term of the loan. And the reason that's really popular is it gives a really big payment reduction. But also, if we do have a refinance opportunity come up in less than 2 years on that 2-1 buy down and they refinance, whatever money was left over that they collected from the seller to basically prepay or buy down that loan, that gets applied to the balance on the refinance. So it lowers the payoff amount on the loan, which means that you didn't waste that money. If you spent thousands of dollars to buy down the rate permanently, and then 9 months later interest rates go down, well, then you already spent all that money. You're not getting anything refunded. So that temporary buy down makes a big difference on the payment. And it's also protects you not wasting any of that money.
So what is the payment difference that these buy downs make in the 2 years? Let's talk about a 2-1 buy down. So what is the payment difference that this buy down would make? Can you give us an example? Maybe a $400,000 purchase price, or in how much of a difference that would make? I want you to do it all in your head.
You don't want me to do it in my head because it will be wrong for sure. I can calculate it out. I mean, basically what you're looking at is the interest rate 2% lower. So all of this stuff is calculated out based upon what somebody's credit scores look like, what their down payment percentage is. So I'll go ahead and in some numbers really quick here.
Yeah, let's just be very generic, just to give an example of how much of a difference that can make.
Yeah. But when you put me on the spot, you got to give me like forewarning.
Well, you like to do that all the time. So I figured I would pay back.
That's true. So yeah, so I'm going to figure out, what are we going to do? We're going to do a $400,000 purchase price. What do you want to do? A 3% down payment?
Yeah. 3.5, 3.
We want to do conventional or FHA?
3.5, since it's a little bit more common.
Okay, so we'll do FHA. 3.5% down. And okay, let's make this fun.
We'll do a trivia.
Exactly. What do you think the payment is for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance? Obviously, this is all estimates. And this is not a guarantee of anything. This is just some fun numbers that we're going to do. So, Jackie, I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you think principal, interest, taxes, and insurance and mortgage insurance would be on an FHA loan, $400,000 purchase price? I have not clicked the screen, so I don't know the answer. I'm going to guess along with you, and we'll see who's closer.
2,800.
Okay. I'm going to guess 3,100.
Crap. I was going to say 3,000, but I figured I would guess lower so we don't scare anybody.
Then I'll be the bad guy and give them the news.
The quote, yeah.
Okay, so wait a minute. Why is that? Oh, I think we have to do more than a $14,000 loan. Okay, let's do that again. And we're going to do the 2-1 buy down. We're going to give numbers on that as well. So let's see here.
Sorry, I haven't eaten all day.
You're just going to gnaw away at it, huh?
I'm like very discreetly like getting little bites of my hot Cheetos.
It wasn't
like
that discreet.
Small little bites.
It wasn't that discreet, though.
It was very noticeable, especially when I paused opening my mouth and putting a hot Cheeto.
Exactly. Okay, so maybe you need to take over for my job. This is why This is why I don't do it in my head anymore.
Okay.
28.80.
Oh, see?
That's pretty good.
Right.
Okay, so now I have to throw in disclosures here. That's at a 6.25 interest rate, APR of 7.186. Okay, so that is the note rate at 6.25 that the loan would be at for the long term. So what would happen is the first year, the payments are calculated at 4.25%. And so that reduces the monthly payment by $486.14.
So it's about a $2,400 payment, right? If I did the math right.
Yes, we'll let you do math in your head. I will not do it in my head anymore. Yep. So that's pretty good. So what that costs is that costs $5,883.70 for the first year buy-in. So basically, you as the realtor, you're negotiating for the buyer. You tell the seller, hey, we need to get X dollars to do this buy down. So that's just the first year. So then we got to figure out the second year. So that second year payment's calculated at 5.25 in this scenario. That's a net savings of $249.45. So for the year, that's $2,993.03. So total cost $8,827.13. So what you're doing is you're telling the seller, hey, give us $8,800, and then what's going to happen is that's going to get held by the mortgage company in a separate buy down or subsidy account. And what they're going to do is, as the buyer makes that lower payment, that $2,400 payment you're talking about, the lender is going to take $486 out of that subsidy account. They're going to apply it to what the homeowner paid, and then they're going to forward that to the investor. So what's happening is they're taking a little bit out of that subsidy account each month. If you go and interest rates drop, you go and refinance in a year. So they would have used $5,800, but there'd still be $2,993 left in that account. They go refinance, that $2,900 gets applied to the principal balance to pay that down a little bit before the refinance happens. So that's why it's such a big benefit, is you get a bigger payment reduction on the temporary buy down, and then you don't lose any money if a refinance opportunity comes up before 2 years is up.
I mean, actually, that's a great tool that we have been able to use to, if you have an issue or maybe concern about the payment being that high, you can make the payment more affordable for the first 2 years, especially the first year. We just talked about a almost $500 payment difference, and the second year being about $240. So that makes a huge difference on your monthly payments, and that is with the expectation. Again, we cannot predict interest rates, but that is because it's a temporary buy down. That is with the expectation that in the next 2 years, interest rates will drop and you will be able to refinance into a lower rate. And then at that point, once you refinance, your payment, I don't want to say that it stays the same or about the same of what you were used to, but it should be lower than what the actual rate is on your the actual rate will. It should be lower. Just let's leave it at that.
Keep it simple. Yeah, but actually, there is something that I want to bring up that I've had this conversation with a client this last week, and it has to do with down payment assistance programs, because sometimes people have enough money for the down payment, but some of the down payment assistance programs are pretty good in that they give you a below market rate. Now, right now, we don't have any that are below market rates. They're either around market rates or above that. And so the question becomes is, if you can come up with the money for a down payment, should you take the down payment assistance money? And what I like people to understand about down payment assistance is most of them are second mortgages. Okay. Put a loan on the house. You don't have any interest. You don't have any payments, but you have to wait out a certain period of time before that money is forgiven. It could be 5 years. It could be 7 years. Some of them could be shorter. But what that does, and most don't realize this, is it kind of locks you in to that loan and keeps you from being able to refinance for a while. So one of the really good benefits of the FHA loan is the ability to do what's called a streamline refinance. Makes it really easy to get a refinance done. Basically, if you pay your mortgage payment on time for the previous 12 months, then you'll be able to qualify. They don't relook at income. They don't look at the rest of your credit. They don't care what the home value is. It makes it pretty easy to just get a lower rate. Problem is if you have a second mortgage on there from the down payment assistance, you're not going to be able to do that streamline refinance. You could potentially do a regular refinance where we have to get an appraisal, we get your credit and your income. But in order to do that, you actually have to pay off that down payment assistance loan. These down payment assistance loans, they don't allow for the ability to do what's called a subordination, where they just let you refinance the first mortgage and they stay back in second position. You can't do that with these. So unless the home value has gone up, a fair amount, there's not going to be enough room or equity to be able to refinance and pay off that down payment assistance. So if you're getting into a down payment assistance loan because you think it's a good deal and you're getting this money for free, you really got to know what you're getting into. Because if you're paying an above market rate and there's a second mortgage attached that's going to keep you from being able to refinance, that might not be a very good deal. If you get at least a market rate on the interest rate and you have a second mortgage, it might be okay. But we actually do have two different lenders that do the down payment assistance in the form of a grant. And a grant is different. Stop eating. You're like, he's going to be talking for a while. I'm just going to go ahead and eat because I'm hungry. So if you have the grant, that money is given at the time of closing, and there is no repayment and there's no second mortgage. So it gives you the ability to, 7, 8, 9 months down the road, there's a waiting period you got to hit. But once you get to that point, if the interest rates actually stayed the same, because the interest rate on that loan is higher, okay, because you're getting the grant money. Right now it's at 7.75%. So it's a higher interest rate. If the market stays exactly the same as it is today, you don't have a second mortgage, you get to 6 months down the road, then you streamline refinance into the market rates today, and all that money you got was free. So it doesn't hold you back from being able to take advantage of lower interest rates. So it's really just a short term. The guy I did numbers for the other day, I think it was like $385 a month higher payment because of that interest rate. But what he basically was doing is, if he went 8 months of paying $385, Jackie, do math in your head.
About $3,000.
$3,080, pretty good. So he pays an extra $3,080 over the course of 8 months, and he got $15,500, I believe, was going to be the down payment assistance. So he was netting a benefit of $12,500 just for taking that higher interest rate for the short term. Now, obviously, you run the risk of, if market interest rates go up, you may not be able to refinance into a lower rate. But there's not too many people out there thinking that that's what's going to happen in the market. Everybody kind of thinks they'll go down. Nobody really knows when or how much. But even if they just stay the same, he would potentially be able to drop from 7.75, and today we just did numbers at 6.25. So he might be able to get a huge 1.5% reduction if everything stayed exactly the same as today. So that's one that's not used frequently as I think it should be used, because people get caught up on that lower payment. But I think you got to really weigh out the risks of, do you go into this one with a lower interest rate today, but you'll be stuck with the second mortgage that's going to keep you from being able to refinance. And certainly, if you have the money, in almost all cases, you're better off bringing in your own down payment money and then getting the seller to pay your closing costs. If you don't have any, then you don't have that money, then we definitely want to look at down payment assistance, because you'll be better off using down payment assistance than trying to wait and accumulate that money. But we really want to look at all those options to make sure you're not locked into something that's going to be uncomfortable down the road.
You, oh, that was weird. You were silent, but your mouth was still moving. I think
That's a cool trick.
it's lagging a little bit because yeah, it's doing the same thing right now. So, what are your expectations for the market? Before you answer that, let me remind everyone that this is a space for you. We can answer all of your questions. So please type them in the comments. Um, Brian is checking for anything right now to see if we have people commenting on creating hot Cheetos or if they want to know anything about real estate or the market.
Everybody wants to know what flavor of Cheetos are you eating?
I have them hidden here.
The lime.
Chile limon. Oh my God, my face is bigger.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to do that to you.
Now it's your face. Leave it at your face.
Everybody's face is bigger. No, I meant to go and share a screen because if you are interested in purchasing and you send us a message, doesn't matter when you buy, we got a little special incentive for you. Basically, I'll read it since Jackie can't read small print.
Or anything at all, really. People understand what I'm saying.
If you inquire with either of us and we are able to help you get into a house, we are offering a no-cost home warranty up to $700, courtesy of Jackie. And for those of you who do not use down payment assistance, we are offering an appraisal credit up to $650. So all you need to do is shoot us a DM and inquire about the coupon. If you are actually asking us about Tuesday, Jackie has offered so graciously to buy you tacos too when you close.
Yes, so make sure you ask on a Tuesday.
Taco Tuesdays. So yeah, up to $1,350 if you are going to close with us, and you just comment or DM asking about it, and we will send that over to you. So you were going to ask something else. What was it?
I was. So we obviously were talking about the opportunities in the market, what you can do to make your payment more affordable until rates are a little bit lower. So obviously getting into rates, what kind of expectations do you have for rates right now? I obviously know that you can't predict it, but I want to know what's your take on interest rates as of right now.
Yeah, I mean it's getting very difficult to predict anything just because of the fact that there's so much that's changing. Obviously, the biggest thing that everybody hears about all the time is tariffs. What's tariffs going to do? And the thing that I think people really should think about is the tariffs were announced on April 2nd. Intentionally not on April Fool's Day. And with that, everybody and their brother started predicting inflation was going to go up. Everything's going to cost more. We're going to be paying all this extra money for all these different things. We are now 2 months later. We've had 2 inflation reports come out since then. And we just got an inflation report that came back at 2.1%. on the PCE inflation report. And what that means is it is pretty much at the level of inflation. 2% is the target level that the Fed has set for the long term. So we're pretty much down there. That's the lowest inflation reading in 4 years. So the predictions of inflation related to tariffs, I mean, we're not all the way into it. We don't know. A bunch of these have been put on pause for 90 days. I think what's going to happen is about 2 to 3 months out, we're going to probably have a little better gauge on what this is all going to look like, unless there's more pauses. I think everybody's kind of realized that, Trump and his administration, they are serious about using these, but they're using them as a negotiating tool. So I don't think that there's a high likelihood that there's going to be high levels of tariffs left on most things. There's probably going to be some tariffs left on everything. But the other thing that people don't think about is even on a big ticket item like a car, okay, you think a car, maybe that costs 30,000, 50,000, whatever. And you think, oh, well, if there's going to be a 10% tariff on that, it's going to be, an additional $5,000 on a $50,000 car. And the truth of the matter is it's not based on the sales price of the car. Those tariffs are based on the parts of the car, the cost of the material that went into it that was not manufactured in the US. So if there's a small component of the car that was manufactured overseas, that item when it comes in is what's actually getting the tariff, whatever rate is, 10% or 25%. You're making me hungry, by the way. So the amount of the tariffs aren't necessarily going to be as high as everybody's anticipating. Because the other thing too is even on a $50,000 car, like I've never sold cars. I don't know anybody personally that's told me what cars cost, but a $50,000 car, it's not a $50,000 cost. Like there's pretty healthy profits in there for everybody. So even if that cost was $35,000, then all of the components that went into there, they got to see what was actually manufactured overseas, what's actually going to have a tariff. So it's going to be a one-time thing for whatever actually stays in place. It's not going to be as high as everybody's thinking it's going to be. And so the reason that that's a big deal is because if there was higher costs, if there was inflation, that's bad for mortgage rates. That would drive mortgage rates up. The other thing that you hear from people who are not opposed to this stuff is that it's a one-time cost add-on for that. It's not an ongoing thing that's going to be a repeated cost that was going to push inflation up. So it's going to basically a one-time hike, and then it's just going to be the same. So with that, I don't think that there's much chance of rates getting out of control. I don't think anybody anticipates that. A couple of the experts in the industry, Fannie Mae, Barry Habib, they've basically come out with estimates that by the end of the year, they believe we're going to be right near 6% on conventional loans, which is a pretty good amount lower than where we're at right now. We're closer to 7 than we are 6. So if we did get close to 6 on a conventional loan, that's going to mean FHA and VA loans will probably be in the mid 5s. I think everybody would really like that. I think that would make, affordability a lot better. I think there'd be a lot more activity in the market, which unfortunately might actually make it a little bit harder to get into places. While you can afford the payment a bit easier, you're gonna have a harder time getting a property if you're competing. And then all of these concessions that are available today might be a little harder to get.
Yes, it definitely does. It makes it, especially for first-time home buyers that are limited to only their down payment or perhaps are using a down payment assistance program. It makes it a lot harder for them to get into the market when the market is more competitive. I'm speaking from experience. I've had clients when the market was super competitive. I had clients that were competing against 10 buyers at a time for the same house. I've had clients that I've showed over 38, 40 offers to, and we wouldn't be able to get into anything until the market changed. A lot of those clients closed until the market changed, until interest rates went a little higher, but they knew and they understood the opportunity of being able to get into a home now and being able to negotiate a great deal. And even though the payment, the payment was going to be a little bit higher than what they thought, like they were still saving more long term by getting into the home for a better price, by getting into the home with all of the closing costs, and by getting into the home at this time, at this market. Because if you look at how much you save over time versus having a payment that's a little bit higher, going back to that whole 8-month explanation of $380 a month, if your payment is higher, $380 a month, but over time you're really saving $15,000 instead of three, wouldn't that make more sense to you?
Oh yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
Too many fairy Cheetos in your throat, huh? I wanted to actually, while you're choking and dying, I'm going to be very inconsiderate and talk about something else.
Well, I wanted, before you take over and become a car expert again, I wanted to mention something, and I actually completely forgotten that I'm choking. So let's go back to it. You're allowed to speak now.
Oh, I'm allowed to speak?
Yes.
Wow. I've never been told that by a woman before. So no, I had somebody, one of the loan officers in my branch, he called yesterday, and he had a client that has a reverse mortgage, and their balance on that loan was growing, as it does with the reverse mortgage. And they were getting concerned because it was a family home that had been in the family for a long time, that they wanted to get out of this mortgage so that they could preserve the equity so that they could pass it down to their kids. And the financial advisor had recommended that they refinance into a regular mortgage and start paying off that balance so that they could leave more money to their kids. And he called me up and he was asking me some questions related to just some compliance stuff and like rates and costs and stuff like that, completely unrelated. And I stopped him. I said, hey, I know you got all these questions about this, but why are they trying to pay off the reverse mortgage? And he explained what the reasoning behind it was and what the financial advisor advised them. And I said, well, you might need to go back to them and give them a little different advice and tell them there's a different way to do this. Because, and I want to bring this up because, there's a lot of bad information about reverse mortgages. A lot of people don't understand them. They don't know the benefits of them. They get the wrong idea of what they are. And so what I said to him, I said, look at what the situation is. They have a loan in place that they don't have to make any payments on. And their interest rate was, I don't even know what it was, but I'm just going to guess it was probably in the mid sixes right now, just based on where the market is. What they can do, instead of incurring thousands of dollars of costs to refinance out of that loan into a mortgage that they're going to be obligated to make payments on, I think the balance was around $400,000 if I remember correctly. They were going to have to come into closing with probably $40,000, and then they were going to have, I don't know how many thousands of dollars in costs. And now they're going to be locked into a payment that, my guess, just based upon that loan amount, probably going to be in the neighborhood of about $3,000 a month, in order to start paying down very, very slowly the balance on that loan to protect equity in the house. What none of them realized, including the loan officer, was all they need to do is just start making payments on the reverse mortgage. The beautiful thing about that is the money, when they pay it on the reverse mortgage, it goes immediately to the principal balance. So it can actually pay the loan down faster than a traditional mortgage, but we didn't even get into that. The whole point was you don't have to spend thousands of dollars to get into a new loan. Just start making payments. The nice thing about it is you're not obligated to make those payments. So if their life situation changed, for example, like let's say one of the spouses started to need some in-home care. Well, if they don't have an insurance plan that pays for that, because most private medical insurance doesn't cover that, and then Medicare does not cover it. And if you have any kind of money and assets, you're probably not going to qualify for Medicaid that might be able to help with that. So that's an out-of-pocket expense for most people. Well, if they got into that situation and they were in a regular forward mortgage because they refinanced, they'd have to not only pay that $3,000 mortgage, but now they're going to have to pay the thousands of dollars for the in-home care. Whereas if they were making $3,000 a month payments on their reverse mortgage to pay their balance down, they could just stop making that and redirect that toward the in-home care. Nothing bad would happen. Most families, like when you talk to kids that get involved in these, the kids are like, hey, you know what? Do whatever we got to do to take care of my parents. Like, I'm not worried about getting the money out of the house if we need to spend that money to take care of my parents. So while they're trying to do something nice for their kids, the financial advisor probably not understanding this, and honestly, even the mortgage advisor not understanding reverse mortgages, they could be going down this path that was really not going to put them in a better situation. It was going to actually put them in a worse situation than what they could have been in just by staying put and just making payments. So I think that thing to, remember as people are getting older and considering reverse mortgages, you really got to be talking to people that know what they're doing, and don't take the advice of your financial advisors without actually talking to a reverse mortgage expert, because they're not experts in this. Like, I talk to a lot of financial advisors. Some of them have the mindset that their job is to keep somebody from needing a reverse mortgage. That's actually a mentality from about 10 years ago when the product wasn't as good. So just if you have anybody that's older, generally speaking, older, that might be eligible for it, they're really good programs, but you need to talk to somebody who actually knows them that can give the right advice. And maybe somebody that's close to that age might be somebody that can give that advice.
Well, do we know anybody close to that age?
I'm not there yet.
And most people probably don't know this, but you can actually purchase and do a reverse mortgage. I actually had one like that. I was a listing agent and they were doing a reverse mortgage. And I was like, wait, what? What are we doing? And the person that was buying the property was older, not old, older. She was older and she was doing a reverse mortgage. She sold another property, bought this property, and bought it with a reverse mortgage, which I thought was really interesting. And it's definitely not something that you see every day. So that just goes to show there's a lot of options out there. Talk to the right people. Make sure that all of your options are laid out for you. It's not a one size fits all. It's not what your cousin told you or your uncle told you. Is, just leave it up to the experts. Ask the experts based on your current situation, what are the best options for you. That could actually brings me back to what I wanted to say earlier. I was saying that you talk to your mortgage expert, your car expert, why Cardenas. Speaking of cars, before you buy a car, please make sure to talk to your car expert, Brian, and do not get into a $1,000 payment before you buy your house. If you have any intention of purchasing a house in the near future, if you're planning on purchasing a house at any time, I would strongly advise for you not to get into a payment that's $1,000, that's $1,500, $1,800. Do not before you purchase a house. At the end of the day, you can purchase a house and later purchase a car. You will still be able to do both, but purchasing a car that has a high enough payment of $1,000 or more might prevent you from qualifying.
Yeah, unless if you want to live in your car,
then that's another option, of course. But it might prevent you from qualifying. It might affect your approval, even if you still qualify with the car payment of that high of an amount. It might it might affect the approval amount. So, how much does $1,000 usually impact on someone's approval? Or let's talk, 1,000. How much would you say that impacts on someone's approval amount?
Yeah, that's a huge dollar amount. Like if you figure $1,000 car payment, like that'll have such a big impact. Let's see if I can do the numbers, or you can guess again. Let's play the little game. How much of a difference does that make
on a loan? I think $700. Oh wait, for the approval amount. Right? We're talking about approval amount. So $700, then that should be about, they might be able to qualify for $60,000 less.
Okay, so how much of a difference are we talking about? $1,000 or 700?
Okay, I'm talking about the difference that it would make on an approval. Let's say that they are wanting to qualify for $400,000. I'm saying that a $1,000 car payment would probably, instead of make a difference on how much you qualify for. So if you wanted to qualify for 400,000 and you had $1,000 car payment or $1,000 responsibility on your credit, then that would probably impact your approval amount by 60,000.
It's going to be more than that.
100,000.
It's probably going to be close to that.
I was gonna say that, but I thought of $75 per 10,000.
Yeah, so going down $100,000 in purchase price is about $650 in monthly payment. So if you had $1,000 car payment, you're going to probably cut the amount that you qualify for down to, let's see here. I mean, 1,000. So let me just say this. Even without the numbers, if you're thinking of buying a $400,000 house and you buy a car with $1,000 payment, you're crazy.
Before you purchase the house.
You're crazy.
Yes, but your approval may be affected by.
So yeah, $125,000 lower purchase price is $880 difference in the monthly payment. So like if you seriously put $1,000 a month in a car payment first, you're going to probably cut that amount you qualify for on a home down by easily $140,000.
And it's nice to have a nice car. Like everybody loves a new car, but wouldn't you want somewhere to live instead? Or maybe a place that's nicer? Because let's say if it affects say $100,000, then you might have to settle for a house. Let's say you're buying at 450, then you might have to settle for a house that's 350. Or even if you wanted to buy at 400,000 and that impacts your payment to or your approval amount to 280. You might just impact your approval altogether because there's really not a ton of homes that are at 280,000. There's definitely some homes out there that can be that low, but you're gonna have to go probably further than where you want to stay. That makes all of the difference.
Yeah, just make sure that if you get that car, that the seats recline really flat so that you have a comfortable place to sleep, because that's going to be where you're sleeping. It's going to make it tough. You're going to have a tough time being able to do that. So I guess the message is like not to judge, even though I sound like I'm being pretty G. Not to judge, what somebody wants to spend on a car. Just don't do it before you buy. Like if you want to go do it afterward,
do whatever.
Be my guest. Like just get the house first. Cars are way easier to qualify for. They'll charge you more interest. Your payments will be too high. Like, yeah, you probably shouldn't spend that much on a car if we're really being honest about it. But just do it after. Like if you go get there afterward, you get the house first, you're going to be in a much better situation. The house is going to go up in value in all likelihood. The car is going to go down in value. So if you're going to be putting an equal amount of money into both, not to mention the fact,
especially if you buy a Tesla, that's going to lose its value.
Uh-oh, we're going off into that. But see, they don't all lose as much value. They lose more value when you get into accidents with them. Then they go down faster, right?
Yep, miles.
Yeah, and you put crazy miles on that a real estate agent puts on them. That's not good for the resale value.
Nope. So I'm stuck.
But you have a house, so now you could go get a car, right? You did the house in the right order.
I'm allowed to do this. Well, it was more of a necessity than a luxury. Let me say that. It wasn't because the car was my dream car. It was because it was something that I needed and that was gonna make things a little bit more affordable to me as far as gas and all that because of how much I drive. But if it was just any other situation, I probably wouldn't gone for like the 100,000 dollars.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, your cost for gasoline would be outrageous.
Yeah, I was spending over $1,000 a month in gas, so definitely made sense for me to make the switch. But we're kind of going sidetracked here. Thank you everyone for joining us. We are at almost 6 p.m. Don't forget, next Tuesday we are on TikTok live at 5 p.m. We're gonna be doing this every Tuesday at 5. Real Talk Tuesday. Please inbox us or DM us your questions. We'd love to answer all of those questions for you. Anything you have related to financing, real estate, please make sure to send us a message and we will be happy to answer those questions for you on our next live Tuesday, 5 p.m. on TikTok Live.
Yeah, and if you guys just have questions, hit us up. Like, it's not going to cost you anything or hurt you. We're nice. We'll talk with you. We'll answer your questions offline if you want to do it offline and see where you're at and see what you can do.
Yes, we are happy to do so.
All right, Jackie, go get the bag of Cheetos and get back to it.